For me, building a space should be a transcendental one. It shouldn't be a mundane existence, because we are here for a short period of time. So if you are not spending our time in a beautiful space, like how Steve Jobs say, then it's worthless. So I want to make wonderful works, functional works with discarded materials, with scrap materials or mud, because there is more beauty in it, more beauty understanding the natural nature of it.
You're about to enter the Archgyan Podcast. India's first and very own architecture podcast, where you'll hear the insights, experiences, and journeys from India's leading architects. No matter what your skill level is, together we'll build on our knowledge and share architecture's greatest stories ever told. Now, here's your host, Manish Paul Simon.
Hey guys, welcome back to the Archgyan Podcast. I'm super stoked to share this episode with you guys because we have this eminent sustainable architect from India, Vinu Daniel. Vinu sir is the founder of Wallmakers, and they're based out of Kerala. And Wallmakers have been constructing all their buildings out of sustainable earth materials ever since 2007. It's needless to say that they've gone on to win a lot of awards and accolades, and they've been published widely on Archdaily, Dezeen, and various other numerous media publications. In this episode, you will get to listen to Vinu sir's journey in architecture and design, right from Sharjah to the College of Engineering Trivandrum, to going to Auroville, to meeting Laurie Baker, to starting his firm, Wallmakers. And then we dwell into certain topics like dealing with your clients, especially if you're building with mud, how the site can be the solution to your design, and why it's important to focus on what is not built than what is actually built. Maintenance in mud earth buildings, the big divide between us architects and what happens on site and the masons, how more architects and students could adopt this technology of building with sustainable earth materials and scrap. He also shares great anecdotes on doing architectural education and also doing masters in architecture. Towards the end, we have this quickfire round, but it's slightly different because we have his students asking questions, and it was definitely a very interactive and fun session. So for more on the episode, you can head to archgyan.com/26. Now, before I head to the episode, it would be great if you guys could support our show. You can support our show by going to archgyan.com/Patreon. Patreon is a website where you get to support creatives or people who are working on certain projects, like how I'm working on the Archgyan podcast. Even supporting us with $1 goes a long way in helping us keep publishing episodes every week and inspiring you guys to become better architects, designers, and making a positive change in the world. Now, without further ado, this is Journey of a Sustainable Architect in India with Vinu Daniel. Let's go.
I didn't want to do architecture. In fact, I didn't know about architecture. I wanted to be a musician when I graduated from 12th standard. But typically parents wouldn't allow for such a career. It was not even deemed as a career. So in my bid to just get into some engineering platform while doing my music seriously, I got good ranks in entrance, and I saw something like architecture means something about drawing, that was all I knew about it. And I wrote an aptitude test, and the aptitude test also was about jigsaw puzzles and many other things, not entirely related about architecture. So the test was easy, so I got admission into College of Engineering Trivandrum. And very near to it, around 5 miles away from it, was Dr. Omenakutti teacher, who was a renowned musician, Carnatic musician at that time. So I kind of joined both the places. So during the daytime, I would go for architecture, and post afternoon, I would return back for music classes. And I hope that I would drop architecture by third year or something, because I was not doing well. Third year or something, I will drop it and I will get fully into music, because my teacher was planning big things. But it became vice versa. I dropped music and got into architecture.
And on reminiscing, I think that was a good decision, right?
One can't say. I'm still, doing my part in architecture. So definitely it is something which I really love and I'm passionate in doing. And it has a lot of impact on the environment.
Yeah, absolutely. The way you practice, do you feel that you have indebted to your college and what it has taught you? How was your experience studying in CO?
Actually, most of the time, I'm very indebted to college because they gave me a hard time. So whenever a client gives me a hard time, it is not, I can only compare it to what I had in college. But the best part of being in college was that I was in the vicinity of a master architect, Laurie Baker.
Right.
And many of his works and his working style influenced us as a group in the college. So this was definitely a positive for me during my initial years, at least.
Right. So it is not actually the course or anything, but it was your meet with Laurie Baker which put you on a path which helped you practice what you're doing right now, right?
Yes, somewhere around fourth year, the course, as anybody who has done architecture, it's pretty clear that the course is about 2D course, and we are doing 3D. Building means it is a 3-dimensional space. So the entire course revolves around how much 2D works you can complete. So definitely it is an incomplete course. But the best part was during fourth year, there was a competition. It was a NASA competition, National Association of Student Architects competition. And during that time, the best part was we had to document a Laurie Baker building. And that was Pallikudam by Laurie Baker. And it fascinated me. It changed my perception of how to build spaces. And seeing the man himself and getting wisdom from him was a great change. Overnight I think I changed my entire perception of this career. Right. And I decided to stay on, pursue it.
Post that, when did you decide to start off on your own life?
Actually, there was no decision as such. Post architecture, my father passed away during my last thesis. And one of my professors, Sharjah TL, to whom I owe a lot, he came to me and said in a simple manner that nobody is expecting anything from you at this point of time. Whether you are successful, whether you are unsuccessful, nobody is depending on you. Because my family members were kind of busy dealing with my father's, business and other things. So this professor knew that. So he said, why not try something experimental? Go to Auroville and learn about brick making and,
right.
Go on your own path. Let's see where you reach. Anyway, you don't have to, earn money at this point of time. So just try doing different things. That was one of the best advice I ever got.
Okay. So that led you to the path to go to Auroville and then practice there for over a year or two.
Because I was simply fooling around in Trivandrum. And my teachers actually called me, this Professor Sharjah sir and Eugene Bandala, who is also a famous architect in Kerala and India. He does a lot of daub work, Eugene Bandala. So both of them were there during my thesis. Okay. They called me up to the office and told me that, I should leave immediately to Auroville. Do not stay even for a second with this, whatever general practice is happening. You just go there and learn. Don't stay anywhere near to your hometown or anything. That was what they told me. So I left and I was under the guidance of Satprai Maini. There are these many courses regarding earth block making and everything.
Right.
And that was again game changer for me. I fell in love with mud blocks immediately. It was like I was waiting to see it.
So you were literally working on site, making the mud blocks. How was your experience on general?
There, I think there was a shortage at that time for junior architects. So a typical day of mine started early. and I had to be there at the block making process to make sure that the blocks are of certain size and strength. The supervisor has to make sure. And one advantage I had at that time was that I was very cordial with the local Tamilians. I was very cordial with them, and I was one
So
among
you
them.
knew Tamil and all that?
Kind of. It was fascinating to know Tamil. And we kind of worked together. So around afternoon, I would leave for the site because I had to make sure that the attendance is taken care of. So I would be leaving for the site and handing over the plans for execution. So that meant I had to travel a bit towards a certain point in Auroville, and then I interacted with the people who were doing the brick masonry, and by evening I would return back, and there would be some visitors to Auroville Earth Institute. So I would give them a guided tour about what Auroville is, what Auroville Earth Institute is. So it was, and then I used to draft in the night.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, do the drawings in the night, because the next day my boss would scream at me otherwise.
Okay. Nice. So it was a mix of both drawings and site work.
Yeah, it was everything.
Okay. And then after Auroville, could you tell us about your first project, which you mentioned in the last session as well?
My grandmother passed away after almost around 8 to 10 months in Auroville. I was working like strenuously in Auroville. I was working on a Puthukupam Nataraja temple. So somewhere around that period, my grandma passed away, and I had to attend her funeral back in Kerala. And my brother-in-law asked me, like, what are you doing recently? So I told him about the mud bricks and everything, and he was very fascinated by it. So he told me that you can start a house for me. I wanted to build a house, and I was like, yeah, we got it. So I bought a machine. I brought Tamil masons from that part. But then, like any typical Indian crowd, like suddenly rumors started spreading that this is mud block. When we are touching the edges ward off and stuff like that, I was naive enough to understand the complexities of starting earth architecture in Kerala. So finally, one day my brother-in-law, after me making around 12,000, 14,000 bricks for the entire building, he called up and told me that we have to cancel the project. At least we cannot do with mud blocks. Though I was very offended at first. And because I promised job to around 12 Tamil people, masons and helpers, that I will be taking care of them for at least 1 or 2 years. And they just came for around 2-3 months. So I decided that I will do the compound wall instead. Further recruitments were needed, and I didn't have to anyhow become an architect for doing a compound wall. There were no more drawings necessary. So I kind of incorporated my brother and his friends and whoever were there who were jobless at that particular point of time. And because I was the big brother, they had no other choice. So all of them became labor for me, including myself. So morning we will get out of the home in very good fashionable dress. And at the side we will wear workers' uniform and start sieving the soil. So this was how we started.
Great. So compound wall is like the very first project.
Yeah, compound wall actually gave us our title, our name. Our firm's name is Wallmakers. That happened because when we were doing compound wall, suddenly compound wall became a hit. Because we were incorporating beer bottles and mud bricks and everything. Because we had all the time, because we just lost our main project, so we had a lot of time to do some nice masonry. So at that time, what happened is, I think one client came. I was not there at that time, and he was talking about a big project. He was talking about 2-acre campus and everything. And then finally he blurted out, "We want 2-acre compound wall from you guys." So at that time, my brother got very offended and said, so then he asked whether you guys will do some buildings. So my brother got very offended and he said, no, we won't do buildings. We only do walls. We are wall makers. Okay. So that is how the name came.
Okay. But how about, when someone is starting off, generally money is a big factor, right? So how did you manage your expenses or even your lifestyle during that time?
I was an overnight pauper. I was somebody who lived the life of a prince. I was one of the richest guys during my graduation. Okay. And on the graduation party, I became one of the poorest. So overnight, I became a pauper. So, and during my Auroville times, I actually was staying with a very good friend of mine. He is a Gurukul of mine, Kalari Gurukul. His name is Manish. And he was a guy who was poor all his life. So somebody who became overnight pauper, overnight poor, doesn't really understand what being poor means. And somebody who has been always poor in his life doesn't really understand what poor means. So we both gel together well. So somewhere in Auroville, suddenly from having hot steaming sauna or like having great shower, it changed to tap water on the road. But this didn't affect me. So I was in some sense poor the second I left Auroville. Suddenly all my situations changed, and I was actually not exactly, aware of it in some sense, I wasn't thinking that this is going to be a continuous scenario, or I never thought of it as a continuous scenario. I never thought of myself as poor. And my friends around were always, somebody who were like, even when we were like really struggling for money, my Gurukul Manish would, he was this Ayurvedic treatment guru. So he would do some foreigner Ayurvedic treatment and get 500 rupees, and that day itself we'll spend it in the biggest restaurant, biggest party or whatever it is. We used to spend it. So we never lived the life of a poor guy. Even today, we always lived the life of a rich guy, though we were never, financially, sufficient. So it never bothered me. And I think the new generation is very much worried about their finances.
Correct.
In fact, they shouldn't, because their parents have earned something. Whether you are son of a farmer, whether you are son of an industrialist, no kids in these times are ever felt that they need something, or are ever not fed whatever they don't want. Even their luxury needs are met. Even the son of a farmer, you can find him with an Apple iPhone. So I don't think any of this generation actually need to be bothered about how much money they get, because at the end of the day, they will not be refused food at home. No matter how jobless you are. You see, our generation, we are not refused food at home. No, we are not just thrown out of home. So as long as you get food and water from home, you are self-sufficient. So I don't understand that factor. Like how will I keep financially up and stuff like that. We can borrow, for some time. Those kind of things are there. So I never thought that was an issue. But the more pressing issue was, I came from a scenario where concrete jungles were made. I was born and brought up in Dubai.
Correct.
So I know exactly where we are heading to. We are heading to a waterless, lifeless situation if we continue building like this. So for me, to showcase a different attitude was more important than whether I get food in the table or not. And I didn't have to worry about even food in the table, because definitely there are families which make food every day. No, it's not like you will have to starve to death or anything. None of us has. Nobody who has entered the architectural profession will starve to death, because definitely they come from good backgrounds. Whether you are broke or not, you will get rice and, curd.
So what advice would you say to someone who's already sufficient and has that mindset of making money?
I can understand a bit of it, because when I was a kid, my father was an industrialist. And I was dropped in school in a Mercedes. And we were that rich. And today, when I am not really into that scenario, I can understand that a person being fond of Mercedes or being fond of those kind of luxury living, I can understand that they are getting fond of it. But to me, it is not really important, because all I check is whether the AC turner has changed in Mercedes. So recently I saw a Mercedes and I was flipping the AC switch, because it's the same switch since 1980s. So that is a memory for me, more than, like driving the Mercedes car. It was just a memory for me. So I'm not really turned on by saying, okay, you will have to earn a Mercedes car. I spent my childhood in it. My fetish with it is over. For me, more important is that is that at any point of time, I should feel comfortable. I should feel lively. For me, building a space should be a transcendental one. It shouldn't be a mundane existence, because we are here for a short period of time. So if you are not spending our time in a beautiful space, like how Steve Jobs say, then it's worthless. So I want to make wonderful works, functional works with discarded materials, with scrap materials or mud, because there is more beauty in it, more beauty understanding the natural nature of it.
So how did you get the breakthrough? I mean, you're a guy who works with all these scrap materials. How did you get a client who could give you this project where he's okay with someone who wants to build his house with mud and scrap? And
I think I cheated. I didn't exactly say what I was going to do. I would say I will do it, and then finally one day, voila, it's there.
Okay.
So the client cannot do much about it. So that is pretty much how I did it.
This project is a IHA Residence, or was there any other project prior to this?
Like almost all projects, but nowadays clients know that I come up with this kind of thing, so they are kind of ready for it, or they want it. But initially it was something like that. Initially it was like, what are we getting? We know how is this coming? This part is coming. So I would say, in the church and all, they didn't know what was coming in the central portion, Madhbaha portion. And they were kind of freaked out. So I said, Acha, something amazing will come. Don't worry. Thankfully, I didn't really, disappoint anybody in that picture.
Right.
Even though I work with scrap, I still made sure that it is a functional, it's a beautiful piece of thing you can spend hours looking at. So that's what it really wants. No?
And what about post-construction? So most of the buildings is made out of mud. How long does the project stay, and how long do you have to maintain it? Is there any maintenance?
There are something like basically mud buildings means there is not much of that kind of maintenance. It is just that certain areas, because I am trying to build like a contemporary fashion,
Okay.
So it doesn't follow exactly the traditional norms of coverage and stuff like that.
Right.
And my glass windows are actually quite huge, because many a time you get a picturesque place, I want to give glass.
Right.
So through the glass and all, maybe sometimes, rain will come in and small notions are there. But most of the clients are accepting towards this thing. Initially, clients were kind of they were a conventional sort of clients. But right now, I'm finding them very, very, approachable in that sense.
So it's a fusion of contemporary and also earth.
I don't know what to say about it. So I think it's better to leave it at that.
Okay, great. Could you explain more about the IHA project? It's been published in a lot of magazines and websites. How did the whole process begin? Where was the design conceptualized, and how did it start?
Like I told you, I never thought that I would get a building properly. So I thought I would end up my life doing compound walls and flower drawers. So every building for me is a bonus. I'm not really worried about my career or stuff like that. Everything is a bonus. One fine day, if I have to stop, I will stop. So the first question that bothers me is, why should I do a project? Whether it is IHA, whether it is Chirat, any of these projects, my first thought process is that, why should I do it? How will I contribute something that another guy doesn't contribute? So in this particular case, I saw that it was a low-lying area. And a general trend by architects or any builder is that they will just fill up the low-lying area and build something over it. So that is where I thought, I can contribute something by not filling up that area and allowing it to sustain as a low-lying, waterlogged area. Because anyway, the foundation has to go deep. So I told them we can hang our facade and literally allow the land to lay like that with a very small footprint, and allow the creatures of this waterlogged area to survive without interfering in your daily activities. We can have mosquito mesh and all those things. This worked with the client, and that is the basic concept of IHA, is that it was a low-lying area, water stagnating area, and we still have it as a low-lying water stagnated area. and the entire building, whatever an architect can think of, is coming above it and making sure that both of them can live in a symbiotic relationship.
Right.
Because very often we kind of complain about the creatures of the down, like snakes and crawlies and all, as like negative this thing, while we always talk about a rodent increase. So basically what these creatures do is they kind of bring down this rodent population and infective pests.
Mm-hmm.
So definitely there is an ecosystem under IHA itself. There is a pond, there are frogs, there are so many beautiful things that a kid can see and learn. So IHA is that, and above it, it's a bamboo facade.
Yeah, that's that parametric facade which you made on.
Those are all the next part of it only,
Yeah.
Like the biggest part is what I didn't build. What I built is something anybody can achieve. It's not something somebody can't achieve, because I have been a skilled craftsman. There are definitely, and I have been seeing a lot of parametric things. So I thought, okay, I will do my own parametric. And I needed that thing because the bamboo facade was also becoming a staircase.
Right.
Because I wanted to show that bamboo can take a lot of load.
Right.
So we are skilled in that sense. Like 10, 12 years in the ground means we are skilled. If we are not skilled by this time, there is some fault in us. So what I didn't build is what I'm more proud of in IHA than what I have built.
Right. And you have this habit of being on the site all the time, right?
Well, otherwise things will go haywire at the site. Yeah, because we go prepared with drawings at the site, but the material always will refuse most of the time.
Okay.
Even though brick, still you make a drawing and go, and you will see that the brick doesn't want that.
So it's a constant trial and error with the materials as well.
No. What happens is suddenly you understand that this is not exactly what the brick wants. You don't want to force any material, whether it is steel, brick, bamboo. You don't want to force it. You want to have its own, like way of flowing. Certain things. You feel that it's an intuitive thing. So definitely, what you had as an intuition was wrong. When you made the drawings, and when you are at the site, you suddenly understand that the scenario is quite different from what you have assumed, because every experimental idea has that part where it can fail. So definitely when it fails, you have to be there at the site to actually, more than the solution, you have to be there at the site, because most of my workers have grown with me, literally. They actually can make the solution themselves, but they just need somebody like to say, it's okay.
Guide them.
Yeah, you broke 5 bamboos, it's fine. Break the rest 50 also, it's fine. Now, somebody to just say that, give them that consent. Because I feel like construction has become a very rigid, scenario where, like you give the drawing, and if the mason goes a bit beyond your instructions, you fire him, or, like you are screaming at the shop contractor and stuff like that. My scenario is not like that. Sometimes the architect, the junior architect at the site or the mason at the site can make a change. They can tell, see, I have done this. And it is my job to make sure that they are also developing with the material. So sometimes it is constant, sometimes I say, no, we have to break it up again.
So you have a constant bond with the people you work with.
Yeah, that is one of the main things that I am proud of. I have a constant bond with them.
I think there's a big divide between the architects these days, right? The guys who work in the office and then what's happening on site.
Yeah, I see a lot of architects blaming the masons or the contractors after the job is done.
Yeah.
Which is a really bad thing to do. If you are the captain of the ship, you should be responsible for every screw in the ship. So I feel that architects should definitely be a bit more circumstantial. They should go to the site. They should understand what they are building. And they should inspire the mason, inspire the helper also, to tell him, this mud mix has a certain problem. Only if you are there at the site, you can tell him why he is working there beyond the money reason. Why his work is valuable. Only the architect can give him that certificate, isn't it? Because otherwise it just becomes a money transaction. Money transaction never really gives you a satisfactory product. Because the guy who built your walls should really love building it. Otherwise, it just becomes, like I built 250 square feet, give me the money. I don't want that. Of course, we give the money. We value them as artists. And we make sure that, they're, of course, we scream at them, call all sorts of things, names and everything. We are rigid. We are, fighting with them. But it's also a learning curve. Along with it comes a place where I am proud of whatever my masons have done.
Also, most of the architects these days stick on to the contemporary way of building with concrete, RCC. Do you think in the future we could have more of the way by building with earth and bringing it more to the masses? Because it's still a very niche, I would say, construction, right?
Actually, what I feel is most of the architects, are generally, they are sheep. They are nowhere the shepherd. Like we were supposed to be a shepherd, to lead somewhere, to be innovative. But most of the architects have become more of the sheep, If a new product comes, we all run behind it and stuff like that. We are no more the leaders of the pack, though we want to call ourselves the leaders of the pack. To be a leader, you have to be innovative. You have to understand the material and guide your people with it. Otherwise, you are simply some guy who is like the sheep following the crowd. So architects generally will follow the path of earthworks. Once the material runs out, so let the material run out.
Right.
It is an unavoidable apocalypse that we are going to face very soon. So when the material runs out, I believe many of them will turn. But it's sad that we only turn at the precipice, not before it, when things can be a much more better handling, better transitional. So when the materials run out, suddenly there are architects who are saying, what do we do? What do we do? How do we build? Can we build with waste materials? There is shattered debris wall, all sorts of debris walls you can make.
What about high-rise buildings?
Why not? I didn't say that we had to avoid concrete at all. I'm just asking you to avoid the splurging of concrete. You don't have to use it everywhere. You don't have to splurge it on plastering. You can have the natural materials. They can look better. So I'm not saying that you have to discard or disregard steel or concrete. Use them to your wish, but do not take it as a luxury. It is whatever resources we are having is actually belonging to our future generations. You have no authority over it.
And how was you as a earth architect educating people about the way you build so that everyone, I can maybe construct with earth as well?
Yeah, see, like I other day saw an Ayushmann Khurrana interview where he actually said that in movies, the first thing is the entertainment or the art of it, and the message can only come later. Through it, you can give the message, not the other way around. You can't put a message and then give some entertainment around it. Similarly, our buildings have to be good, great. Only then people will return back to sustainability. You can't build a poor man's house, like something like a thatched hut and expect a guy holding iPhone to live in it. You can't expect it. You want to make great works of art, beauty. That is what you are here for. So once you make something like that, you can inspire more people to turn to sustainability. You don't have to say that, you have to turn to sustainability because it is our only option, or, it is a healthier option. Nobody is going to go. I am not going to eat a healthy salad if it is just called healthy. I am going to eat a healthy salad. Eat a healthy salad only if it is tasty, Same thing, architecture or the buildings has to be wonderful. That a person should say, I want this for my comfort, rather than saying, I want this to save the earth or anything. Nobody is going to believe that.
Also, let's talk about technology. Do you feel there's a huge divide between what's happening in terms of technology and how the way you practice? Using their tools or using certain tools which could maybe benefit you or something along those lines?
Yeah, we are in the modern world, isn't it? Every second, my entire work happens through WhatsApp, literally. Like the masons also nowadays have WhatsApp. So they will definitely send me a picture of what they are doing, or the junior site site architects also will send me a picture saying, sir, this is happening. And most of the time I work on a screenshot. So definitely technology is a major part. All of us know Rhino, all of us are working on whatever, technologies are there, and we use a pneumatic rammer for our ram depth. It is not like we are still hitting with a manual rammer. So technology is used, and I believe technology is always wonderful. I never see technology as something which should be avoided. I don't know why some sustainable architects talk like that, like technology should be avoided. That's stupid. You need technology, but then the best part of technology is that you have to use it wisely. You have to know where you are, what you are. I can give you a typical example. For example, I saw a wonderful architect, Neri, making an aquahoga, like in this Netflix abstract documentary. So
Right.
she is making an aquahoga for some MIT entrance hall or something, and it's a wonderful idea. So she is actually making derivatives out of milk proteins, pectin, orange peel, and all those things. She's making derivatives out of these proteins. I think seeing it, I can understand it's an expensive laboratory process. She's making this huge, like wonderful organic material out of it. And so I was seeing with my fellow people, like some of my people were also there. And one of them was a student who was not highly educated or anything. So she was making it, and the reason for her to go for these materials, she said, is because it is a material which would perish eventually.
Right.
Because it has a life period and slowly it will perish and everything. And suddenly one of the guys with me said that, that is the same as a coconut palm leaf. What she was making almost looked like a coconut palm leaf thing. So like how we do the thatch roof, it looked like a thatch roof thing. So then he said, so I was taking this documentary very seriously. While these kids told me, then why can't she use coconut thatch? That also will perish after some time. She doesn't have to go to this laboratory and like make all this expensive stuff. Somewhere it made sense to me. Maybe I'm wrong, but it made sense that what he said. Why not coconut thatch? Why are we going all the way beating around the bush to find a technology with all expensive this thing, while you can make it with a thatch? So I felt enlightened after listening to this guy rather than the documentary. So technology is wonderful. It's just that we shouldn't lose our common sense with it. That it becomes a liability. Technology is wonderful.
Yeah, absolutely. And what's your take on architectural education in India? Do you think that our institutes are equipping our students good enough so that when they join a firm, they're more of an asset than a liability?
To tell you the truth, very recent interactions, I am generally staying out of architectural education. So I have always said that I want to stay out of it, all the way away from students or education as such. But recently, my structural engineer, he is a teacher. So we had an interaction. And what he said was something which was very disturbing. So he had a chance to change the syllabus. Like all of us architects, when we study this structural engineering, we generally start with all this bending moment diagrams and all those statistics and everything. After some period of time, we just lose it. We just start by hearting it. So I was recently discussing a structure of mine, and they were using something called STAD. It is almost like AutoCAD, but you infuse your 3D, because my 3D structure was kind of difficult. So I was like telling him, Hashim, bro, where is this thing study? He said, Anna, there is no more study. None of us know the study we did in college. We just have to enter it into the computer, and the computer will give whether this section is weak or not. So I was perturbed. I was thinking, I spent 5 years learning about all these kind of diagrams and moments. And he said it will take 2 years to finish your study if it is done the way we were taught in the college. So I said, then why is it being taught in the college? So he said he was part of this MG University updating the the syllabus.
Right.
And he was almost on the verge of cancelling out all these things and making them study STAD instead of it. Because if there is a computer, this thing, that is where I uphold the concept of technology. Technology has advanced so much that what Antonio Gaudi had to draw for 7 to 8 years, we can do it in 7 to 8 minutes. Whatever he did it for 7 to 8 years, we can do it in 70 to 80 minutes. Let's put that much. So why are we learning these outdated things when we can do it much more easier? Why do we carry 10 books to the school if we need to carry only one book? Why do we punish ourselves saying that this is tradition? I do not believe in it. I can't justify it. I don't support it. So these students suddenly get out of structural engineering because it's certainly a boring thing. Even structural engineers don't do that. Then why are we doing it? So definitely our curriculum needs updation. It's pretty stupid. And definitely we need to get more out into the field. And we need to tell the parents that this is not a goal generating career.
Yeah.
We need to tell them, your son is going to be a loser for the next 10 years of his life. And maybe he will get some projects and earn something, maybe just for himself or earn for some time and again lose his track. So if somebody tells that or proclaims it or publish it in the so-called 30-40 magazines per state that is releasing all over the country, if somebody says that, don't just push your son or daughter to this thinking that it is a career which earns money, I think a lot of them would stop this thing. Because right now, somebody has given the misinformation that this is a cash cow. It is not. You got to be a cash cow. Actually, it's almost like pimping yourself. And nobody wants to do it. Kids are forced into this. So don't do this. Do your own work. Do your own stuff. But the parents has to know, the society has to know that being an architect means you are on the terms of being a street musician or something like that. It is when somebody says that this is a professional career, I don't know which is more wrong,
So in a way, it's like a bubble waiting to burst, or
it has already burst, I think. Just that people don't want to say, mistake, son, I put you in the wrong choice, career path, People don't want to accept it. Everybody knows that now, isn't it? See, right now, an average architect's only choice is to go and do masters, again pay some foreigners, and come back and then become a teacher instead of practice. I think there is a whole generation of architects who have never practiced teaching another generation of architects
that's
about
absolutely
practice,
true.
which is, it's not just an irony, it's satire. So,
what's your take on doing masters in architecture? Do you think that's worthwhile for students who further want to pursue architecture?
It's like, I have a written question for such a thing. Whom would you eat from? Would you eat from a guy who has been cooking in a kitchen all his life? Or would you eat from a guy who has learned all the cookbooks in the life? Whom would you eat a meal from? Like somebody who has studied all the cookbooks, every Italian, Latin, like French cooking, whatever it is. He studied every book but never set foot in a kitchen. Would you have a meal from him? Or would you have a meal from somebody who has been there in the kitchen all his life?
Obviously, the guy who cooked throughout his life and then...
So I have another thing in that. I wouldn't have from either of them. Because the guy who is there all his life in a kitchen is a mason actually.
Okay.
I want somebody who has learned and put his hand in the kitchen to bring me a wonderful meal. Because that is how the ingredients are. You can't just have studies and then expect to be somebody great on field. No, he will be great on class. He can say a lot of theories which he learned from some other theorists, which nobody has ever practiced on the field. And neither do I want somebody who says that I have always been handy at the site and I have worked all my life in the site, whether he started with compound walls or anything. I don't care for that guy either. I want both of them. I want the guy who has learned about technologies, who has read books, and I want the guy who has made sure that he has done brick over brick, lime over lime, cement over cement at some point of time. And I want both of them together. Because the other guy has no imagination, who has been cooking in his kitchen for the last 15 years. He has no imagination. He simply will make the same dish he has prepared, but wonderful dish, I'm sure. But I cannot expect him to go innovative. Now a good, I don't know, kadai murg or whatever it is, we just want it to be traditional. We don't want it to be too many changes in it. But building, unfortunately, the way we have been building is wrong. So definitely we want change. So we want somebody who is a mix of both. Today, the kids want to be a PhD or a master's before the age of 25. That is the problem. I'm still finding a hang of things. Like I told you, whatever experimental we do, even today, it will go wrong at the site. That means I'm still not getting the hang of it after 15 years of practice. So I definitely feel that you need many years of practice before you can think that you are ready to take on masters or something.
Is there a certain time frame where you feel that, okay, I'm confident now to take up the projects?
I asked a question like that to my teacher who was teaching me music, Omanakutti teacher. She was my guru. So there was this Tyagaraja Swamigal, whose Pancharatnas are very hard.
Right.
Like only after a certain level you are even allowed to sing those songs. So I asked my teacher whether I can, when can I get into Pancharatnas? So she said, there are guys who have gotten it in 5 months. There are guys who haven't gotten into it in 5 years. So it's based on the person actually.
Okay.
That person should feel, yeah, I have done something. I know something. I know I am right now lacking. I need to see more world. I need to hear more theories. That is up to he or she.
All right. Yeah, I think that's a good way to put it. And looking forward to the future, what plans do you have for Wallmakers, and what are your future personal plans as well?
No, I don't know where I sleep today. So definitely I am not a guy to plan for future, But I am already prepared for the apocalypse, as I told you.
Okay.
I'm already prepared for it. I am already
doing some kind of training and all
on
that?
the road. Yeah, man. I am already on the road without a house, without an office.
Okay,
I am a homeless, officeless guy. So, and there are many who are following the path. I love that part. And I am very grateful to whatever my clients and the God has bestowed upon me. So I am very thankful about it. And we are doing right now with plastic bottles and with coconut touch and whatnot, materials which were never in my vocabulary are all coming in right now. So I'm in a happy place at this point of time. So I have nothing more to add.
Is there any future projects we need to look forward to?
All of them are future projects we need to look forward to. So
like which are coming up soon and...
like I said, we are doing something with plastic bottles. We are doing something with touch.
This is all over India and even overseas.
This is all over India. That is the good part and the bad part of it. So we have to travel a lot.
Okay.
But it's wonderful right now.
All right, great. All right, so generally we have a quickfire round, but in our case today, we have some students of y'all who come to visit you. So I'll pass on the mic to them and they could ask you a few questions.
Sure. This is Atiq Rahman, who has been my intern for the last 6 months, and right now he has gone back to his office, so he has come to meet me. So please, Atiq, please fire one question.
Sir, when do you think is the perfect time to come into Wallmakers? Like, is it for internship or is it for working? And also if you can tell the duration of work or duration of stay in Wallmakers.
See, most of them have not stayed for more than 1.5, 2 years. Because first of all, I think it is the financial matters, because slowly I have been getting the finances correct for them, because they also need some money to sustain. But slowly we are getting there. The thing is, I never intended Wallmakers as an office. So when you are getting into Wallmakers, it is difficult. Like, let's say as a person during internship and all, it's a small period of time. But when somebody practices with me around 1.5, 1 year or something, their way of looking at life also changes. So you are never out of Wallmakers. And Wallmakers was never something like that I own. So even when you are out of Wallmakers, you are still a wallmaker. And you can continue those aspects in your life. So there are people like Pushkar Sharma, Gayatri Maithani and all who have left the firm and who are doing their own works in their own capacity as a wallmaker. There is Vamshi Reddy in Hyderabad also who is doing it. There is Hassan Nasif, who is doing very well in Kerala. So everybody's philosophies changes, So what I would really love you to do is to understand the philosophy more than the techniques. Many of them come for the techniques actually. Techniques I can teach you in a week, but how to use them, how to go forward. You need to have an attitude to actually convince a client. That is the one thing which I find a lot of people who are going out of Wallmakers is finding it very difficult to convince a client. The reason is you have to believe in yourself. So to believe in yourself, you have to spend a bit more time. So it may be 1 year, 2 year, 3 year, 4 years, however it is, you have to spend your time. And hopefully, since we are right now a gateway, because there are a lot of sustainable projects coming our way and we are not able to handle all of them. So we have been slowly trying to, redistribute the works to the architects. So this is more or less like a campus or a learning place. And like how I said before, it depends on your this thing to when you learn, and when you find a good client that you start. And I will be always there to advise you. So definitely there is no worry in that region. Next is Harshida, who is also been my intern. Yeah.
Sir, as a student who has been in Wallmakers or worked with you, what do you think we should take back from it?
If somebody has studied here for some time, I think probably the outside world talks about us in a very different manner. And it's about technology. He has done arches, he has done walls, he has done sustainable materials, he's incorporating art and everything. But more than that, your love for these inordinate materials should be very high. I don't know, in some sense it's a very objective thing, you should really fall in love with the materials around you. You should really fall in love with the art around you. That is all I need you to do. And there is nothing more you need to take. Because that we love every part of that aspect, whether it is a weed, whether it is a mud brick, whether it is bamboo, whether it is steel, glass, it's not like I differentiate between them. It's just that I cannot afford too much of steel and glass. The world cannot afford it, or concrete that much. So we use it minimally. But wherever we use concrete, we love concrete at that particular this thing. Or when we use steel, we love the steel. We love the scrap. I was hunting for scrap for the last 3-4 days in some god-forsaken area, and I love my products. So definitely what I want you to take back is your ability to love materials around you.
Awesome. Now, would you like to add something? As a young architecture student, maybe?
I've been looking up for your works, and I know about you from Hatik. So I'm a little scared to come to you to work. But I want to work with you. So I'm in that confusion state.
But you have a question?
No, I just have this confused state in my mind.
I am not, first of all, I'm not in this thing charge of the selection process, because I'm not at all the guy fit for selecting anybody, because for me everybody is good. Everybody is great nowadays. I see everybody's portfolio and I'm enthralled. So I'm not the one who is in charge. So if you should woo Sagar Kudlarkar and Srivarsini more than me, because they are the ones who are in charge of selection. But anyway, welcome. Yeah.
So we have a student slyly asking for admission into Wallmakers.
In spite of what they told them.
All right. My last question to you is, what advice would you give to the numerous architects, young architects who are coming out into the
Be
field?
patient. Don't get pissed off or impatient about what the other architects are saying, senior architects are saying. So many senior architects nowadays are saying that today's generation is like this, like that, we were like this. what you should understand is we are in this pathetic state because of the senior architects, whatever the world is in. So definitely there is a lot of optimism in you guys, in this young generation, and looking forward to seeing some great stuff from these guys. And they know how less materials we have. When you are seeing the climate protests by Greta and many people who are so young, we know that they are at least more responsible in their use of materials and everything. They wouldn't show the same shadiness in misusing materials for the short-term benefit. So I am very proud of what they are. Just that their teachings, the people who taught them, or the teachings have never been telling them, it's good, it's okay, take your time. And definitely there are idiots among you who are never fit to work in this field. So I don't have anything to tell them. But for the ones who are really looking forward to work in this, in this apocalyptic scenario, welcome. And I am absolutely optimistic that you will change the tide.
All right, great. So thanks for coming on to the Archgyan podcast. I personally learned a ton, and so did all our fans today. Hopefully we'll have you in the future as well, and we could dwell into more topics. And
yeah, sure.
Thanks again.
Thank you.
You've been listening to the Archgyan podcast. We're still building the community. Please share this knowledge with someone you know who could benefit. Just send them to archgyan.com, where you'll find our free newsletter, and for more podcast episodes, search for the show on any major podcasting platform. Don't forget to subscribe where you're listening right now. And if you liked it, leave a rating or review.